Do, do, do. All right. I don't really stream this public, so I don't think anyone's really gonna watch, but alright, let's begin. So reviewing just these before, essentially this is the last thing we have left until we're done. So again, abundance and distribution of organisms are determined by abiotic and abiotic factors. This is actually even more meta once we're actually learning about ways of measuring abundance and distribution using quadrats and transects and stuff like that, and seeing how abiotic and biotic factors can cause these abundance and distribution changes, and so we can measure that. So it's kind of intertwined, and that's very apparent when you're when you're actually measuring them on the grass or on the field or on the ground. So I mean, clearly I've already gone through these, but it's been a while, so let's just go through these again. First of all, I'd like to try to join these together in kind of groups before we actually start. So since yeah. So since it's in a specific order already, we'll try like go somewhere near that. So the most important one is light and temperature. Then I would say last is the new one, which is soil factors, but that's really just edaphic factors. For biotic, it's really easy. It's predation. Territory. Now there's two definitions. And lastly, that's disease, parasitism and disease or whatever, but just disease. Light temperature, right? And there's water availability, oxygen availability, as well as water, current and wind. There you go. This is not perfectly aligned, but yeah. Now, obviously, light temperature, this is for pretty much land creatures. Temperature could deal with some water creatures. Water availability, obviously, land creatures. Oxygen availability, obviously, water. Water current is probably for water, I mean, for fishes or water living creatures. And wind is obviously for land, so water and land. And soil, obviously, this is land. Okay. Um, these two are joined together. This is not in the same order as the book. However, just knowing this, just knowing these names, it's pretty important. It can tell you a lot. Also tells you kind of the variety, the various things we're looking at. Remember that this is abiotic as well. So we are looking at non-living factors. However, all of these little bracket things we've said is how these non-living factors actually affect living organisms, because remember, the point of looking at what abiotic and biotic factors are is how they affect the abundance and distribution of your organisms. Okay. um, Before I was under the influence that these abiotic and biotic factors affected the interrelationships between animals and um, or rather organisms and environment, and organisms to other organisms, and these abiotic and biotic factors are kind of the organism to environment are the abiotic, and the organism to organism are biotic. And while that is true pretty much, like these are factors which can change what kind of relationship you have. However, I also think that it's important to not just look at what it is, but the effect of it. And the effect of it is really just who's on the receiving end to most of these, and that's usually going to be the organism. And what the effect is going to be the abundance and the distribution of that organism, right? So this is kind of the point, and I really like thinking about it in this way, of organism to environment interactions and organism to other organism reactions, interactions or relationships. I really enjoy thinking about it in that way. Makes it feel a little bit more human. So, of course, each of these have their own things. I do remember that predation was pretty darn easy. There wasn't really much to it. Just talking about how if you have prey and you have predator, and at the start the predator's population is low. So since the prey's population is low, then the predator's population growth will be higher, because death rate is low, so reproduction rate will be higher than death rate, and so population will increase. However, as the population increases, these guys therefore have more food to eat. So then the death rate will decrease as the reproduction rate increases, as animals have more energy to reproduce, because they're reproduce, because they're eating more and they have more energy, and so therefore they'll start to increase. Because of their increase, because they're eating more, their death rate will obviously increase, and as a result, since their death rate will be higher than reproduction rate, their population will start to decrease. And lastly, since their population is starting to decrease, they get less food, so less energy, so reproduction rate goes below the death rate, so then their population will start decreasing, and then this entire life cycle essentially starts over again. Territory was influenced by two ways. In one way, is it a place where animals are safe, and this is kind of an area they would consider to reproduce. And in a second definition, it's where like a pack of animals can group together and protect each other and rest and such. also for this one, it's like an area with sufficient resources and stuff, so they know they can raise that child without, you know, having to like lose out on anything. Whereas two is more like this is a place where a tribe of animals or a group of animals can rest and stuff. Um, Lastly, disease. Disease can weaken the prey. Disease can weaken the predators. If it weakens the prey, then those prey can be more easily devoured by the predators. So obviously that's actually a good thing for the prey, the predators. That's actually a good thing. However, when the prey is diseased, then obviously they are weaker. So this prey would actually be would be doing better if they get diseased. However, in an animal chain, how it goes is usually the predator has the most choices or options to food. And so if they're too sick, maybe they won't be able to get, let's say, a rabbit, which is pretty fast running, but they would still be able to get pretty slow running stuff like maybe, like, I don't know, like maybe even plants if they're omnivores, you know, stuff like that. Oh, oil. So that's kind of it, really. We'll look into that. For light, these are mostly where I've lost most of the sauce. I was looking at light earlier, and it was talking about you know, I should actually put the zoom in button on one and two. Let me just quickly do that. Settings. Where is it? Shortcuts. Zoom. Zoom in, zoom out. View and tool properties. Okay, I don't need a tool for that. I don't think so. Can I add another one? No, I can't. Z for zoom is the tool, okay. How good is that? Because it's not that very far. Oh, yo, wait. Oh crap, I didn't know it was like this. So is it like if I selected this, it will full screen on this? Okay, that's actually really neat. And they also have a zoom out one, so. Okay. I am good. Zoom. There you go. Apply. Oh my god, are you kidding me? It's the other way around. God damn it. Zoom. There you go. It's so cold. 1 second. Oh, God damn it. Enough riffing. Enough riffing around. Um, yeah. When you're talking about light, okay, so remember, we're looking about how light, which is non-living abiotic factor, affects organisms. So think about this mainly, okay? This can be plants, this can be animals, this can be even cells, okay? Because cells are living. So remember, light does what? Light is important for photosynthesis. Since it's important and vital for photosynthesis reactions, that's why you have plants which are under shade. Those plants have higher amounts of chlorophyll. But in general, a lot of plants have different ratios of chlorophyll depending on where they are. So this is one of the reasons, because of light. Light is so important that plants will change or be able to adapt their chlorophyll accordingly. Another feature of light is that since light is important for plant growth, it's light is pretty much animals who rely on plant growth or eat plants or use that as habitat indirectly depend on light being their sustaining source of food or habitat. Okay. And there was one more where it was it was plants. It's similar to how plants use light to grow and also for photosynthesis, but plants will also okay, so this is one of the ways that this is what I was thinking. Abundance and distribution, these are how these factors affect these are how these factors will affect these organisms. However, I mean, as you can already see, what we're talking about is this isn't affecting their abundance or distribution. We're not really seeing that. What we are seeing right now, currently, we will see how it affects abundance and distribution. Mostly, we will see how biotic does that. Well, actually, no. We'll see how both do that in some ways or another. However, you will often see that these biotic factors affect three things, and I really enjoy coming back to this because I think it's such a neat little piece of info. 1 second. Study materials, academics. Am I on the wrong textbook? Where are we at? Here we are. I love this. So although this is talking about how these are essentially these are like kind of the features or changes which separates one population of the same species from another population, okay? And oh, that's crazy. So that is insane. They just put that in there. That's crazy. Okay. What is this? Wow. Area and everything. Tangent. Perfect circle. Okay. So these are the three changes, or three like changes which essentially are generally just features which you see that differs from one species to another. And so essentially it is essentially the difference in niches, right? When they're active, ch- changes, well, okay, fine. Changes in genitalia preventing successful mating is obviously linked to speciation, but but mechanical differences in general are also kind of like if they have stronger legs, or if they have longer heads or taller necks, or if they have, I don't know, stuff like that, or if they can breathe underwater. These kind of changes obviously affect what kind of where they will be. Anyways, when you have environmental factors changing like this, that affects, oops, that's gonna affect what's happening here. If light or whatever changes, you know, or temperature or weather changes, then you're gonna be messing up your mating cycle or flowering seasons or mating seasons, right? If there's lots of predators, you're gonna need some mechanical changes. Um, Behavioral changes are gonna also kind of reflect on seasonal changes, but maybe certain types of trees they'll have to climb on it, and you know, maybe a bird will do mating rituals in that way. I don't know. I'm not sure. Courtship rituals. Um, I don't know. It just spoke to me a bit. So I like thinking of that when thinking about how these abiotic factors can affect those creatures in those specific ways. Um, but yeah. So since plants, they grow in different times. Why? Why do they have this change in their flowering season and such? Why? The reason for that is because when they have larger plants, which shade them usually, they will avoid flowering or growing in the times where these guys flower and grow, because they'll have to compete with them. So they will specifically pick times where these guys are usually not trying to grow. They'll pick that time when these guys are not trying to go to grow. That's when they'll grow, and they'll be more successful in that way. And so, why do they do this? Again, why is there this behavioral decision? It's because light is an important factor, and since they respect that, they do these weird behaviors in order to maximize how much they have, essentially. All right, I'm gonna take a break. Short little break. Short little break. Okay, never mind. I thought this was equal. Never mind. We're good. We're good. The only problem with having a file this big is holy crap, it gets slow. Look at this. It's so slow. I have to. Can I melt whatever it's called? Melt all annotations. That'll probably make it a lot faster. Because I'm not erasing any of these, obviously. Oh, crap. What did I just do? Oh, that's annoying. I forgot this is a thing. Okay, it's okay. It is a bit weird now. It's a bit low quality. Anyways. So yeah, so in those three different ways that we saw, that's how light affects these organisms, or rather, the importance of light is what causes. Yeah, it is the effect of light. Light being important, that's the cause, and the effect is the. So essentially, light being a causal thing for those three effects to happen. If light wasn't so important, then those animals wouldn't be doing those things. Weird how life works sometimes. Let's check out the rest. So, temperature affecting activity of enzymes. Temperature causes enzyme denaturation when low, causes cytoplasm to freeze when it's causes enzyme denaturation when it's high, causes cytoplasm freezing when it's low, so causing enzyme activity to stop. And then animals and plants are adapted to deal with harsh temperatures because of this. Okay? So think about the three different facts. Temperature, there's one main cause, and I think three basically effects. So since temperature affects activity, how? Okay, well I suppose there are two causes and one effect. One cause is since high temp causes enzyme denaturation, and second cause is going to be low temperature causing water content of cytoplasm to freeze, enzyme activity being decreased. So as a result, animals and plants are adapted to deal with harsh temperatures. Okay. Wind and water current. So wind increases cooling and water loss from organisms. So now this was a whole thing. Okay. Water loss from organisms. Like, why does this water loss happen? And it was something to do with it's not something, it was a lot, honestly, to do with it was a lot to do with yeah, boy. It had a lot to do with this one thing. What am I saying? There you go. Well, wait. I think it was the transformation stream, essentially. Increases cooling, increases water loss. Essentially, it makes the air, or the surrounding on the outside of the leaf less humid, which causes that kind of concentration gradient to become stronger for more water to exit the plant so that the concentrations become equal once again. So that's why it causes water loss when wind increases cooling and water loss from organisms. There's enough form by that. Hurricane damages trees affecting populations. Only strong swimmers survive high water current. Wind speed may also favor pollination. So they're just talking about who benefits the most from high wind and high water, and who does not favor from high wind and high water. So they're talking about trees, like immobile things, being like having a pretty rough time in hurricanes. Strong swimmers enjoying high water currents, and because there's less competition, and bees and insects which do pollination, they get favored with high wind speed as well, or just a wind speed higher than something. I don't know. I'm not sure. Water availability, obviously talking about germination and growth of plants, so animals would be dependent on water availability as well. Oxygen availability more related to aquatic organisms. It talks about this was really weird. When water is too cold, fast flowing, enough oxygen will dissolve. When water is hot, still dissolved oxygen content drops. I don't remember this quite well. Temperature, light, adaptive factors of water. Okay, yeah, we mentioned that. Okay. Water availability, germination, groups. depending on animals, herbivores. Um, Water availability. So it's important for germination and it's important as food. Um, Water availability. We're talking about oxygen availability. What are we talking about here? Hello? Where's oxygen availability? Okay, it's not here. I guess I just didn't write it. Or is it this? Yep, it's here, oxygen availability. So if it's dissolved in water, or else it's water cold fast, oxygen dissolves, water is hot still, oxygen is lost, affects growth and respiration. Okay, let's see, oxygen availability. Oh, it's right here. Okay. Can you see this? Can you see this? No, you cannot. Okay. I am the only one who can see this. Alright, sorry about that. Okay. Whew. Okay. So, discussing about oxygen availability, what does it really mean over here when it says, um, how does oxygen oxygen availability makes sense to how it affects, um, how it affects fishes in the sea because they need oxygen as well. But seems to be there's more to it, right? Than just that. So let's see. Okay. Oh crap! We gotta go. We gotta go quick. We gotta go quick. We gotta go quick. Okay. So the text is discussing dissolved oxygen, which is the amount of gaseous oxygen that's dissolved in water. This is crucial for aquatic life. When it says when water is too cold, fast flowing, on enough oxygen will dissolve, it means that oxygen gas from the atmosphere will readily dissolve into water. Yep. When the water is hot still, dissolved oxygen content drops. It means less oxygen gas will dissolve into the water, and any oxygen already present will diffuse out of water more readily. So essentially, it's kind of like evaporation. So when water is too cold, then oxygen from atmosphere will readily dissolve. However, when it's hot, then less oxygen dissolves and more oxygen kind of just diffuses out. Why is cold water fast flowing and hot water still though? Wouldn't you think about hot water as being the more kinetic moving one? So yeah, that's something that we can look into afterwards, but I'm gonna take a break now actually. Yeah, I'll take a break. Okay. Um. Okay. So exactly why does this happen when we talk about water being cold and being fast moving? Like, okay. So what we just said explained that when water is too cold, oxygen dissolves. But also specifically, the water is when water is cold, it moves faster. When water is hot or still, okay. Mm, hmm. I suppose if it is cold or fast flowing, but why is it easier to dissolve when it's cold rather than when it's hot? Because it's busy evaporating the oxygen out, I suppose. Hmm. Relationship between temperature and solubility of gases is an inverse one. As temperature increases, the solubility of gases, including oxygen, decreases. Solubility of gases decreases as water temperature increases. Think of it this way: water molecules are always in motion. In cold water, the molecules move slowly and are close together. That allows gas molecules to remain dissolved and stable. In hot water, the molecules are moving faster and are more energetic. So that causes the dissolved gas molecules to be more or less pushed out of the solution and escape into the atmosphere. This is the same principle that makes a warm soda go flat faster than a cold one. The carbon dioxide escapes more quickly. Hmm. Okay, that's pretty cool. Water flow and dissolved oxygen. The relationship between water flow and dissolved oxygen is direct. Faster water flow increases the rate at which the oxygen dissolves into the water. Still water, like in a compound, has a very thin surface layer that becomes saturated with oxygen. The rate of diffusion from the atmosphere into the water is slow. However, in moving water, such as in fast flowing rivers, and such, creates a larger surface area and constant mixing. This constant agitation breaks the surface tension and exposes fresh water to the atmosphere more often, allowing more oxygen to rapidly diffuse and dissolve into the water. The greater the turbulence, the more oxygen is mixed in. So the combination of cold, fast-flowing water is ideal for high dissolved oxygen levels, while hot, still water leads to low dissolved oxygen levels. Does water with low oxygen feel different than high oxygen? The presence or absence of dissolved oxygen in water isn't detectable by human touch. You cannot feel the difference with your hands or skin. The feeling of water is primarily determined by its physical properties they can sense, like temperature, viscosity, or purity. Dissolved oxygen is a chemical property that affects aquatic organisms but not human perception through touch. The difference is only measurable using scientific instruments. Cool. So there you have oxygen availability. And edaphic, where we talk about, okay, so I discussed this in depth over here. So it talks about either the soil composition or the mineral content, okay? So there's three types. One is sand being dry, so being more easily sand being dry, so it is easily drained. Water passes through it, so sand is leached easily. Plants with long roots can grow here. Clay doesn't leach easily, so water gets trapped here. However, it water traps too much, so there's too much water, and that's not enough. So it doesn't, it receives too much water and less of other nutrients, which is ideal. So it actually is a bad thing. And loam is the ideal soil type where it's not easily waterlogged or leached. Simple as that. Mineral content I feel like is important here because you bring up waterlogged. What is waterlogging is when the roots experience less mineral content because it is filled with water, essentially. Biotic, essentially talking about what we were talking about, finding a mate. Oh wait, finding a mate. Crap, I didn't. Shit. Okay. Yeah. Damn. That's crazy. I didn't even notice. Because we brought up reproduction rate as well as in territory, have breeding pair has enough resources. But yeah, finding a mate is a huge deal. Yeah. Parasitism and disease. Disease animals become weakened and can't reproduce successfully. When did I talk about this? I do remember mentioning this somewhere. Man, what am I doing? On stream? Shit. My bad, my bad, my bad. Do I still have the on break thing? Okay, I don't. What's going on with my town though? Food is still on 0. You're on 55 people. Great leave backwards. Oh god. How, bro? Okay, we kind of need to lock in all our people on what the hell? Where did they go? Anyways. Our lumber is going down, our stone is going down. We should do this later. Okay. Let's run the timer now. I think it's okay. Okay. Abundance of mates is greatly affects the abundance of them. That makes sense. You're gonna have more males if there's availability of mates in that specific area as well. So this directly talks about abundance. They don't really directly talk about abundance that often. Over here, they're saying long roots will be. You're gonna find longer roots in dry sand. So it's like. This is kind of like you can see the hint of abundance showing. Areas of high biodiversity are less affected as predators have prey options. This is another thing. This is actually what I was talking about. Because the prey has more options, the higher the biodiversity, the better it is because they can go for a slower prey if they're weak and they can't catch the faster one to recover, essentially. Yep, I think we're done. This is pretty much everything. do want to go through this. Because it's been a while. So we're starting from the producers who are absorbing the energy instead of talking about how that energy is spread. We're talking about the producers only. So two types of producers here. Well, okay, we're not talking about producers, sorry, we're talking about how the sources of energy come. So there's the sun and energy received by the sun. That's okay, I suppose that's not it either. Ah, okay. So this is specifically by synthesizing organic compounds like CO2, but most of them do this by photosynthesis. Huh. There are other organisms which do this by metabolic reactions, not sunlight. Okay. Heterotrophic can obviously give the idea that you're having organisms which obtain energy by eating plants or by eating other animals that eat plants to indirectly use the products of photosynthesis. So essentially, every organism needs carbon dioxide, kind of. Well, no, every organism needs energy. Energy is by synthesizing carbon dioxide. You can synthesize carbon dioxide from photosynthesis. You get photosynthesis from the sun. You can also get energy if you can't do photosynthesis to get CO2 to get energy. You can do metabolism, do metabolic reactions, which does it for you, or you can eat animals. Eat plants, which do this, so you get the energy that they got from doing all of this themselves. And then there's also eating animals which eat plants. They just indirectly. So because of everything really coming from autotrophs and the heterotrophs which eat autotrophs, the main source of energy is coming from the sun. So therefore it's the ultimate source of energy for living processes, both metabolic and anaerobic. However, which obtain energy from metabolic reactions. Since we get energy from both metabolic reactions and by eating plants and absorbing their energy, what are we? I mean, yeah. What are some autotrophic animals which obtain energy from metabolic reactions, not sunlight? Some autotrophic animals that obtain energy from metabolic reactions, not sunlight. Chemoautotrophs. It's important to clarify a biological distinction. Animals are not autotrophs. By definition, animals are heterotrophs. What? because no animal in existence can do photosynthesis, or animals aren't heterotrophs because none of them photosynthesize. Mm-hmm. Damn, it's pretty good. Anyways. Okay. So over here they specifically they specifically talk about, wait, just remember again. Energy from the sun brought in via photosynthesis to get organics, which you then synthesize to form energy. That's via cellular respiration. Okay. Now, these organics, in the case of photosynthesis, is CO2, right? Because you remember carbon fixing CO2 to make GALP. Instead of CO2, chemoautotrophs will use hydrogen, hydrogen sulfide, etc. Those guys use something else, and as a result of that, they make their own organics, they make their own energy, they make their own energy. Heterotrophs will work the same always. ATP as an energy source, obviously made out of ADP plus a PI, which is a phosphate ion, plus energy. Now, the energy, where is it? Energy is between the bonds. The energy is the fact that these bonds are so high and releasing them would release so much energy out that that energy can be coupled into something else, right? So if you can think of an energy diagram, imagine that they're on the top over here, and a little bump up, which is them maybe receiving some energy to break this bond, will cause something like as big as this, and that loss of energy right there is energy released out into the air or out into the surroundings, and that's coupled into some other reaction that requires energy to be used, like cellular respiration. So I mean, we talked about how these bonds are, where this energy comes from, but it's been a while since we did that. But I don't think I'm going to do that right now. Yeah. So you see light energy not being used directly, of course. That's again, light energy is going to be used to make organics, which is then synthesized to make ATP, which is then used for their energy. ATP is an energy itself. ATP breaking off forms energy or releases energy. And it's not, energy is not, that's the thing. Energy is not a free moving thing. It's something that is stored and then is transformed and is transferred to something else. So there's energy in here, and you can transfer that into something else by breaking this and putting it into that. Okay, you're not going to have intermediate where energy is floating around. That just does not happen. So ATP is a universal energy source, so it can be used by all organisms. ATP is needed in the conversion of GP to GALP. This is important. Well, we already need this because it's in the last cycle where it goes off like this, and so you have that coupling reaction. And there's another coupling reaction. I think it's not ATP. It's one more thing. Oh, it's ATP twice. Dang, okay. Let's open the book. I think we'll end off tonight with some maths questions, actually. But yeah, oh, okay, never mind. Oh, no, it is ATP twice. Okay, it's ATP twice. To turn GP into GALP, and then GALP is used for other things. So you need ATP to turn GALP into glucose, or you need ATP to turn GALP into Rubisco, right? I think that the way they explain it here is great though. I think it's great. Much as the 3 carbon hold on. Yeah, these ones were pretty good as well. It's not too difficult to understand. Okay. I like where this is going. So yeah, it's being what is this? So its primary use is for GPT-GAP. How is ATP formed? ATP is formed from the electron transfer chain, right? That goes on here, transport, not transfer. That releases ATP that's used as a byproduct, but the main use is actually for, over here you see ATP is being made over here, and the electron transfer chain is going on. But then in non-cycling phosphorylation, that's going on, but the main thing that's going on is the production of H plus ions as well as H plus ions, which is used to make NADP. NADP and NADPH. NADPH is the reduced version, I'm not sure actually. I don't know how this makes any sense. I don't. How do you expect this from people? No one can. If it's so important, then you should have made it in the same year, in the same book or something. Why is my thing? If I made this non-techno related, so it would just be this. Isn't this better, technically? I don't know. I just find this page so aesthetically pleasing. I don't know why. It is. It just is. Objective of light-independent reactions: the reduction of carbon dioxide from the air, leading to the synthesis of carbon dioxides. See figure E. Light-independent. Sorry, did I say light-dependent? So ATP is synthesized 2 ways: using energy released from catabolic reactions by chemiosmosis. Chemiosmosis, main way used in photosynthesis. So, okay, chemiosmosis seems to be specifically the electron transport chain. That's how ATP is made. Okay, so you can get directly ATP from catabolic reactions, but then you can also get ATP, or you can essentially synthesize ATP in a different way via chemiosmosis. So electrons are excited outside of chlorophyll and accepted by electron carrier proteins. This is where the chlorophyll's specific wavelength, what's it called? I forgot what it was called. 1 second. The ratio, the pigments. Sorry, the ratio of pigments. Yeah. So the pigments being able to absorb different wavelengths. So this pigment absorbs a specific wavelength. The pigment of the chlorophyll absorbs a specific wavelength of light, which excites the electrons out to be accepted by electron carrier protein. And so the electron carrier proteins are then moved from carrier to carrier in the electron transport chain of decreasing energy level. So yeah, see, there are oxidation reduction reactions in all of these little proteins that they go through. Energy released by the ETC electron transport chain is used to pump hydrogen ions. Okay, so energy is being made via or is being released via these oxidation reduction reactions. I don't know if that's actually true. I remember what each of these do acts as it releases hydrogen ions into the thylakoid space. Thylakoid space is, what's the thylakoid space again? It's inside, right? Yes, it is. The stroma is essentially the membrane. Yeah, okay. I mean the cytoplasm. Okay, cool. So it shoots all so the energy released by the electron transport chain is used to pump hydrogen ions into the thylakoid space, right? So there are hydrogen ions out here, and the energy released by the ETC is making them go into the thylakoid space. Now, of course, they have to move out again. So finally, when you have a high concentration amount of hydrogen ions here, remember hydrogen ions also come from the photolysis. So then you're having a lot of hydrogen ions over here. And so now you can diffuse down the concentration gradient through ATP synthase. ATP synthase is obviously doing this without any input of energy. And in fact, it's creating the ATP because you're having a moving cycle as this pumps and spins this around, and it forms ATP as ADP goes inside and forms ATP and leaves. So it's almost like energy input via a lot of things, and you're having kind of water falling down. Okay, well, actually, water rising up a dam. Okay, and then at the end, the water falls back down, producing that energy that we need for our reactions. Okay, and where does that electron go? I'm pretty sure that electron binds with something. I don't remember quite well. Okay, so I want to ask two things. One is, where's the electron going? Electron. Two, what is the electron doing? Like, what are these oxidation and reduction reactions? And the movement of H releases energy to yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think I asked this for, why is there H plus ions in the stroma in the first place? Let me just I'm just taking a break 1 second. Let's see. What do we got? Alright, let's get back into it, huh? I don't think I spent too much time off. 20 minutes or so. Okay. So, the electron's final destination. After electron moves through the electron transport chain and gives up their energy, their final destination is to be accepted by any dp plus. The electrons the electrons reduce NADP plus to NADPH, and energy carrying molecule used in the Calvin cycle to produce sugar. The ETC is not a closed loop. Electrons need to continuously be replenished by the splitting of water. That provides an electron. So this is actually photolysis, which provides the electron to be, to fill in the gap, or the hole, actually, that's the proper word, that's left by the electron that's going through the thing to photosystem 1. This is obviously NADP, then becomes NADPH. NADPH to light independent reactions. So after it goes, however, what did I want to say? Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's literally it. It's literally it. The electron is then binded with the stigol here, and then the ATP turns into ADP. Well, NADP, what is NADP used for? That's also a coupling reaction, right? Yeah, these are the two reactions that I was talking about. There's an ATP reaction and an NADP to NADPH to NADP reaction. Apparently this gives energy? I didn't even know. Oh, I forgot. So to form grisaldehyde, a 3-carbon sugar, the hydrogen for this reduction comes from the reduced NADP, and the energy required comes from the ATP. Right? I need to look at the structures for GP and GAP to understand. And I'm losing the plot. I'm losing the plot here. Let's close this. Let's close this. Do. Okay. Let's see. Electron's role in powering the pump. The electron doesn't directly give the hydrogen pump energy. Instead, the electrons move from one carrier protein to the next in ETC, and they're moving to progressively lower energy levels. This release of energy powers. What does that mean? This release of energy powers the active transport of H plus ions from the stroma into the thylakoid space, acting as a energy source for the proton pumps. The movement of electrons releases energy, and the pumping of ions requires energy, so the two are coupled. Okay. How does the movement of electrons supply energy or release energy via redox reactions? Oxidation, a molecule loses electrons. This process releases energy. Reduction, a molecule gains electrons. Electrons are passed down a series of protein complexes. Each carrier protein is more electronegative than the one before it, meaning it has a stronger pull on the electrons. The electrons start with a high energy level and are passed from one carrier to the next. As they move, they release a small amount of energy at each step. This process is analogous to a ball bouncing down a set of each stairs. At each step, it releases a little energy. The energy released from the redox reactions in the ETC is what powers the proton pumps to move. Okay, cool. There's a low concentration of H plus ions in the stroma, not a high one. The entire purpose of the ETC is to pump ions out of the stroma into the creating high concentration in the thylakoid. The buildup of a high concentration of H plus ions in the thylakoid and a correspondingly low concentration in the stroma is what. So okay, I suppose there's an equal concentration in both the thylakoid and the stroma, but now you're making it a high concentration in the thylakoid and a lower concentration in the stroma, which drives the diffusion of H plus back into the stroma. Because if there was a high concentration already in the stroma, then they would actually be coming by, they would probably be coming by diffusion in towards towards the thylakoid membrane, turning ATP into ADP. Maybe actually, maybe. Photosynthesis is a process used to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose using energy trapped by chlorophyll from sunlight. By green plants mainly, photosynthesis is an endothermic process because energy is trapped in and taken in. Yep. This is your organics. Remember, glucose is formed from gout, by the way. Light energy. This involves the PS. Oops. This involves the PS1, PS2, and the LIR reactions. Okay. Everything falls in this between area, and then you make the glucose and the oxygen. Oxygen. Where does oxygen come from? Oxygen comes from the byproduct of photolysis, where you make oxygen and water. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like 10:30. Start studying again tomorrow.
Okay.
How much is that?
Okay.
Exactly how long? Was it exactly 12 hours?
No. It's 12 hours.
So let's stop at 12.
12 minutes.